and having complementary styles is a blessing and a curse. So talk to us a little bit about the blessing and talk to us a little bit about the curse.
Yeah, I'll talk about the curse. I will talk about the curse. Well, one of the things is we do really practice what we teach about the conflicts and things like that. We really are firm believers in the different personality styles and how we work and how they can actually complement each other. However, there's been plenty of times that it has bumped heads.
Episode 22 of the Her Power Hustle podcast. We are talking with Rhonda and Jessica, founders of Skylight Leaders, on going into business with your girlfriend, your homegirl, your sister friend. Woo, they spill. Check it out, Her Power Hustle.
This is Her Power Hustle with Michelle Talbot, where inspiration meets motivation to empower you for the perspiration of being a woman entrepreneur.
Welcome to the Her Power Hustle podcast. I'm Michelle Talbot, your host, and I am so thrilled that you are joining us today. We have a great conversation with the founders of Skylight Leaders, and they are Rhonda and Jessica, who went to college together. They work together. And now they're in business together. They talk about what it's like to be in business with your homegirl, what it means when you have husbands at home and families to tend to and you're working all the time, what it means to have disagreements in the business and how do you handle them. You can't just walk away. And also how to protect yourself in business. It's a really great conversation, and I've had the pleasure to observe Rhonda and Jessica interacting both informally and formally, and it's a wonderful thing to behold. So if you are on that day job and you have a homie and you see each other and you work well together and you think it could be a possibility to go into business together, this is definitely the episode for you to check out. Also, before we get into that conversation, just want to let you know, I hope to see you. Last week we talked with Paul Brunson, and you still have the opportunity to join us at the SOAR Retreat. Steve Harvey's SOAR Retreat is happening here in Miami, Florida, if you are listening to this before October 16, 2015. And you can get tickets to that at herpowerhustle.com/SOAR, SAOR-retreat. That's herpowerhustle.com/SOAR-retreat. I would love to see you there. I think we'd have a great time. It's going to be an amazing conference for women talking relationships, wealth building, and careers in business. So without further ado, let's get into our conversation with Rhonda and Jessica, and I'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for joining us on Her Power Hustle here with Michelle Talbot, and we have a great conversation today, a conversation that is sort of like an amalgamation of talking about being girlfriends and partners and friends and confidants and all of what Her Power Hustle is all about. For many of us, we're solopreneurs, and I thought it would be really interesting to have a conversation about going into business, not only with a partner who's a partner in business, but a friend, someone who you've worked with, someone who knows your dirty laundry and whose dirty laundry you know. So I'm very, very happy today to introduce to you Rhonda and Jessica. In 2013, after 20 years of working in the social service field, 13 years of friendship, and a successful side hustle, Rhonda Gibson Willis and Jessica Johnson decided to leave the field of social work in pursuit of their dreams full-time and started Skylight Leadership together. Skylight Leadership provides leadership training, presentations, and executive coaching. They have found their complementary styles to be both a blessing and a curse, but mostly a blessing, as they've built and run a successful business together. The journey along the way has taught them a lot about themselves and each other, and there will definitely be a book about it. In addition to being business partners, Jessica and Rhonda, both licensed clinical social workers, are also happily, blissfully is actually their word, blissfully married, and Rhonda has 4 children. Thank you so much, Jessica and Rhonda, for joining us on Her Power Hustle. How are you?
We are great. Thank you for having us.
We are happy to have you. So I'm just going to start with Jessica. Jessica, tell us a little bit about the transition from being full-time working in a residential facility to the transitioning and saying, you know what, we're going to go into business together. What was it that you were doing together in the workplace that made you think it would be great to go into business with Rhonda?
Well, one of the things, we actually started a business back in 2004. It was a counseling and consultation business where it was very successful, surprisingly, right away. However, we were too afraid to step out that comfort zone and leave our full-time jobs and actually not have that stable income coming in every 2 weeks. So we had that going on, and we actually had to turn away clients. Then as we continued on with that, we had the opportunity to kind of go off on our own because the company we were actually working for was being bought out by another company. So we had the chance to stay there with them. We decided that this would be the time to actually venture out on our own. We were successful with the first business, just too afraid, and so we thought this was the time for it. And we were looking more at doing more of the training and actually looking at the bigger scopes with organizations and business other than, doing the mental health that we were used to doing before.
That's really an interesting journey. Rhonda, in terms of having a side hustle, a lot of folks may work a day job that they hate, and so they have a side hustle that's their passion. It sounds like for you and Jessica, your side hustle was very much similar to your main job. Is that correct?
Yes, it was very similar, actually, and that's what became part of what took the passion out of it, at least for me, was that I'd work a full day dealing with all that came with what was in the mental health scope, and then go in after work and do the same thing. But it felt different because it was my own, to be able to claim it and mold it how you wanted to do it was a little different. But, yes, that side hustle was very similar to what we were doing in our day job. It was just that we were able to call the shot, so it felt different.
What made you launch a side hustle in the first place?
Wow. Okay, this goes back to graduate school. Probably our last year in graduate school, we were having lunch with a group of friends, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool if we had a counseling agency. We should have a 5-year plan. We never talked about it again until about 4 years later. Somebody said, didn't we have a 5-year plan? And then we started meeting. We met with a local psychologist, got some office space, and it was just like things just start falling into place really, really quickly. And so that's pretty much how it happened, that it was almost like it was destined to be, and there were 4 of us initially going into it, and it ended up with us going down to 3. But it was that's how it started, over lunch.
And then due to the state and the money that was coming in, we had decided that we wanted to have a different venue of money. So we decided to launch the Skylight Leadership, where we're looking more at instead of focusing on the mental health part, we decided to look at more of the taking teams to functional to optimal.
So tell us
and
more
that's how
about
we got Skylight.
What exactly is Skylight? First of all, it's a great name. Tell us about where the name comes from.
We actually got the name from a company online, nameella.com. We contacted them. They did our logo and our name.
Gotcha. See, now that's great. I mean, that's great. So did you feel like, had you tried to name the company before and just were like, oh, no, let somebody else do it? Or what led you to having an outside source to name the company?
Yeah, Jessica and Rhonda show just wasn't going to, I didn't think anybody was going to catch on to that one. So our creativity, I don't know what happened at that point. Rhonda's usually the creative one. She'd had nothing.
Well, you know what?
You just have to know your limits.
And that's what I was just going to say. See, that's the great thing. I love that you said that because actually there's a podcast called the Startup Podcast, and they basically, the first season, they're in their second season, but the first season was all about creating the company that was going to be the platform for the podcast, as well as having other podcasts. He was basically creating a radio station of podcasters. And so one of the things he did was he hired an external agency to name the company. The company is called Gimlet Media, named after the drink, the gimlet. But they went through so many iterations, and it was true. They just hit a point where they were like, you know what? We have reached our max. We can't do this. We need to send that out. And I just think that you're doing that as a great message to folks listening to say, hey, I know where my limits are. I know what my limitations are. Why even take the psychic energy to putting it into naming when we can be doing other things that we need to focus our mental energy on? So I think that's a great lesson. Because sometimes you just need to throw money at a problem, right? If you have the resources, use them. So, so you named it. You had it named Skylight. So now tell us what does Skylight do? You mentioned that you provide leadership training. What exactly does that mean?
We do a lot of the soft skills, the conflict resolution, the communication, things, teamwork and so forth within businesses and organizations, as well as the individual executive coaching, helping people, bring out those answers they already have within and helping others work better with their employees, as well as bringing them up to their levels, being able to, one thing with leadership, sometimes you find yourself up there by yourself. And one thing that we really preach is making sure that you bring other people with you. You should be giving people as much knowledge as possible.
So in terms of your changing direction and really pivoting in terms of your market, how did you then find clients? Because you sort of shifted your focus. So how did you find clients initially?
Well, initially we went with our circle of influence, the people that we knew. And because most of them were in the mental health field, we started where we knew folks, and it eventually spread from there. And so the majority of our contacts and the people that we do business with at this point, 2.5 years in, has been through word of mouth, where people have either they've known us in one area or it's expanded to other. And we've done some networking events, and we've gone out and we've met some people, but we really, the nucleus of our contacts and where we're at now started with a lot of the people that we knew when we were back to social workers, with that 20-year career that we had.
So tell some of our audience members some really good strategies that you found helpful to you in terms of reaching out and expanding your circle of influence once you decided that you were going to target a different market. Did you do any kind of focused activities with regard to marketing or networking? Were there certain, deliberate steps that you took to get the clients that you wanted?
Well, we joined the local Chamber of Commerce and really got to know them, and that was a really good help in terms of once they knew us and saw what we were doing, they were able to articulate to other people what we were doing. And part of what we've done, which we believe that it's easier for us to show you rather than tell you, and so we put together a complimentary training that we go out and we present to companies. And so that way that companies that had never heard of Skylight Leadership or Rhonda or Jessica, they had nothing to lose by bringing us in and allowing us to provide a training for their people, which we found to get really rave reviews. And so we were able to sell that as a, hey, take a look at us. This is no strings, no obligations. And what we found is that was a great way to get exposure, that people got a little taste of what we were, and then they'd come back and say, okay, what else do you do? What else, other kind of trainings can you provide? Or I know of another agency that could use this type of thing.
Now, that's a really big risk, right? Giving away some things for free, especially when there's time and possibly travel and things like that involved. Was there ever a point at which with any of your strategies, do you have disagreements or differing opinions on things between the two of you? And if so, how do you settle them?
Well, I think that's a loaded question, but I think the beauty of the partnership that Jessica and I have is that we have our eye on the same prize, and we we have typically agreed on how to get there. We have differing ways of doing it, but in terms of, we haven't really had any places or any decisions that we've come up to that have been real big deal breakers of, I want to do this and you want to do that. We talk through a lot of different scenarios, and basically if it doesn't get us to that place that we ultimately want to be, and if it's not worth having a big disagreement about it, then we can typically go either way. As long as it doesn't hurt the business or each other, we're good.
Well, you say that being partners and having complementary styles is a blessing and a curse. So talk to us a little bit about the blessing and talk to us a little bit about the curse.
Yeah, I don't talk about the curse. I will talk about the curse. Well, one of the things is we do really practice what we teach about the conflicts and things like that. We really are firm believers in the different personality styles and how we work and how they can actually complement each other. However, there's been plenty of times that it has bumped heads. So Rhonda is very, fly by the seat of her pants. And, she's that creative one. She has these great ideas. And I'm more of the laid back, need to process things, need a happy process to get to certain places. And as Rhonda spoke, the beauty of it is we have the same goal at the end, and I think that's what's got us through it all. But those times that it's hard while we're in the process, it's very difficult to see that end every once in a while. So there's times, and I'll give you an example. I'm one that before I get up and speak to people, I like to prepare. And, first I was thinking maybe 2 weeks. And I kind of bent a little bit. Okay, a week is good. Rhonda, on the other hand, could just get up and talk to anybody, and it's not a big deal. So she usually puts our presentations together. She makes them really pretty. She's, like I said, very creative. So there's times that we've gone to presentations, and she is putting it together on our trip there. Which will drive someone like me, someone like me that needs to be prepared, a little crazy.
Right. So how do you deal with that? So how do you address that, Jessica? When that happens, what do you do? Because clearly she knows it drives you crazy, but yet she still does it. So what do you do? How do you handle that? We're about to have a therapy session, aren't we?
Time to take a deep breath.
I'm putting the social workers on the couch. I'm putting the counselors on the couch.
Right.
Oh, you didn't know my degree is in human development. I'm sorry. You guys did that.
Great. And I'm going to play this back for Rhonda because I really like that you said, even though she knows it drives you crazy, she keeps doing it. I want to make sure she heard that.
But now I'm not finished yet. I have some questions for you about you for Rhonda too, Jessica. But we have you on the couch right now. So seriously though, in all honesty, for someone who's listening, who has a partner who they feel like we're great together, we make money together, but they keep doing this thing that drives me crazy, and they know it drives me crazy. So what do you tell that person? How do they deal with that issue?
Yeah, one of the things that what Rhonda and I do, we've taken the DISC profile years
and please
ago.
tell people what the DISC is. The
DISC profile, actually, it's the dominant, the I for influence, S for steadiness, and C is for conscientiousness. And you take a test. It's pretty extensive, and it gives you a profile. In a classic profile that actually gives you a lot of information and a lot of detail about yourself, and you'd also learn about the other people that you work with. And so that was one of the things that Rhonda and I revisited. We revisit our classic profiles, and I could see like a lot of the things, the behaviors that Rhonda was having. It's not that she's personally trying to drive me crazy as she put things together. That's just where she works best. She works best at the last minute. She's more creative at the last minute. For whatever reason, her brain turns on at the last minute. Where mine just has to actually go through a process to feel prepared so that I feel like I'm the best that I can be. Rhonda needs to just be, under pressure to feel the best that she can be. And so we had to look at that and take a lot of the personal out, where it's not Rhonda just trying to just nag at Jessica or Jessica nagging at Rhonda because she doesn't have it done. These are just things that personally we needed to professionally do our best. And so I think being able to visit those things and finding each other's weaknesses, each other's strengths, that helps you work well together. Find out what those green zones are, where something that energizes you, the things that, Rhonda, like I said, is very creative, so she puts the PowerPoints and things together. And that stuff doesn't feel like work to her. It actually energizes her. Mm-hmm. Where, I'm more the detail-oriented person, where those things energize, the business part of it energizes me more. And so knowing our weaknesses and our strengths and being able to help each other out there and not take things personal, and then actually being able to talk about things, not holding any grudges, not just, I don't want to talk to her anymore, blah, blah, blah. Actually being able to confront things when they come up has really helped us a lot and helped us get through things. Now, there's been times where we had to take a break from each other, like, okay, let's step away from this right now and then revisit it. But knowing each other and knowing yourself is very important to be able to make a partnership work.
Well, I think that's awesome. I really do. And I mean, Rhonda, from your perspective, are there certain tools that you and Jessica utilize to make sure that you can sort of say, this is the moment where we need to stop discussing this, or something of that nature? What do you do to make sure that it doesn't get personal when you have such a personal relationship with someone?
Yeah, what's interesting is when we first started our the first business 10 years ago, at our very first meeting, the group of us got together and we talked about the importance of our friendship and the relationship and how that was a critical piece of the business doing well. And so we had to do what we needed to do to protect the friendship. And so we developed what we call 1A, because it is the first order of business on the agenda. 1A is, how do we protect our relationship so that we can go about the business of doing the business? Because if Jessica and I are no longer friends tomorrow, it's really difficult to show up at Skylight the next day. So we really want to be mindful about that. So every so often one of us might say, hey, 1A, and 1A may signal that this is the time to stop. This may be the time to have a really serious conversation. This may be an issue that we really need to put our professional or our personal feelings on the back burner and really deal with this in a professional way and go from there. And so we've had that mindset for a really long time. So I think it's become a natural part of the process, with that. But with the first business, stakes weren't as high. As I mentioned, it was a side hustle. That business was, hey, that's how we got our new fancy watches or Coach purses or went on vacation. Skylight is what pays the light bill. And so when the stakes got higher, it's a real big difference. So when the stakes got higher, it created a different level of anxiety and issues and conflicts and things that I personally didn't see coming, that I can take responsibility for creating just because of my anxiety around how much was at stake.
Well, then talk to us about, so that our sister power hustlers can understand, who are not in partnerships yet, but maybe they're considering going into business with a girlfriend. What are some things that they can do before they sign on the dotted line of partnership that would let them know whether or not it's a good fit from a business perspective? What are some things that folks should look at before going into partnership with someone?
They need to look at their ability to communicate. Can they have really hard conversations now? Because if you can have hard conversations as friends, and not those conversations where you're like, girl, I agree with you 100%. That sounds great. But no, I don't agree with what you're doing, or I don't think that's a good idea. And if the other person is able to take that feedback without getting defensive in your personal relationship, then that's going to be beneficial.
I'd say making sure that they have the same goal. And then, again, emphasizing the strengths and the weaknesses so that you're doing, because in the beginning when you're doing your own business, as you know, you're doing everything,
Right.
everything, and that can be very, very tiring, and it can, kind of drag you down some. So being able to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, so you can actually, because there's times that it doesn't feel like the workload is balanced, but some things are easier for the other person, and so being able to identify that is very important.
And do you discuss that ahead of time? Sort of, these are, like you said, you did the disc. Would you suggest that other people do something formal like that to understand one another's personality and work types?
Definitely. And if you can get a coach involved with that process, someone who's able to help you walk through that. And another thing that's a good suggestion or something you want to look at is, what's your exit plan? What does this look like? It's almost like a prenup. What does this look like if everything works out well and, if 20 years from now I decide that I don't want to be in this anymore, what does it look like when the partnership dissolves, or does it dissolve? What does it look like if this goes bad? If this goes bad, how do we separate it? So thinking about all of the potential options and how things could go, not just the good ways that it can go, hey, we're going to live happily ever after and split a fortune, but if this doesn't work out, what would that look like for our friendship and our business? Have that written out and formalized. We have a partnership agreement, and we also have a dissolution. How does this look when this goes bad? And those are documents that are living, breathing documents, because 2.5 years ago, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so you have to be willing to have that level of flexibility with each other, to have concern and care about each other as not only business partners, but also friends. And, that goes a long way. But the communication piece is number one.
And in the beginning, it may feel like you don't need those things, but trust me, you will.
Yeah, and I think that's really, really great advice. And I have to direct folks to our episode with attorney John Didon, where we talked about that same exact issue in terms of from a legal perspective, and that's episode 8 of the Her Power Hustle podcast, and that is looking at what happens when you do decide to dissolve. Does this go to the children? Do the children want, do Rhonda's children want to work with Jessica? Does Jessica want Rhonda's children working with her? Those are the things to think about. So that's a really good episode to refer back to from a structure and corporate structure and looking at the legal issues surrounding that. That's Her Power Hustle, episode number 8. I'm glad you used the analogy of a prenup agreement, because many people say, and I too, have a business partner from a prior business, and it is like a marriage, right? It is like a marriage. But both of you are also married. So talk to us about sort of being, quote unquote, married to one another in the business, but then also juggling, the demands of husbands at home. How does that work out or not, or what are some issues that you've seen over these years of working together while married, for the portion that you are married, pop up, and that you could, sort of give a cautionary tale or words of wisdom to our listeners about juggling?
Yeah, luckily, we both have very supportive husbands. They're very supportive of us. Actually, financially have supported us to start this, as well as, being behind us the entire way. I think they're probably our therapists as well, because we go back to them and vent a lot. They know Andre, Rhonda's husband, knows when Rhonda's upset with me. And Steve has no choice but to hear when I'm upset with Rhonda. So the juggling, I think the juggling for the most part, I think we got a hand on that pretty early, because I found myself doing work at all hours at one point, where I eventually had to say, okay, stop. I had to tell myself, to narrow it down, to work in certain areas at certain times, and leave it at that. And like I said, my husband's very supportive, so there was never a time where we haven't had to experience any struggles with that, because I think we both realized pretty early on that we needed to have that balance at home.
And Rhonda, you echo that, or do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely echo that. And you know, in Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, she talks about the importance of, you know, the success of a woman is the man that she chooses to marry or the person that they partner with. And that has been 100% true in our cases because, as Jessica mentioned, you know, they know what's going on with us, with the business. They know when there are times where we're just like, oh, my gosh, this is harder than I thought it would be. The both of us, if we wanted the job tomorrow, we could probably pick up a phone and get a job working in the field that we worked in before. And, you know, our families have both had to make significant sacrifices for what we're doing right now. And to have husbands who have both said to us and each other that, you guys, you need to make this work. So that level of support has just been, it's been phenomenal. And without that, if there had ever been a moment where either of them faltered and said, look, okay, this is what I'm going to need for you to do, it could be the very end of this whole partnership for each one of us. And so that has been so incredibly key to our success and really gaining the traction and momentum that we've needed to get this 2.5-year-old business to what we ultimately want it to be, which is we want to see this business, you know, handed over to grandchildren at some point. But there's a lot of sacrifices that have to be made here.
And that's what I wanted to get back to your goal setting. Is that something that you did together, or did you each sort of write up your goals and then come back together and then create sort of one overarching goal for Skylight?
We did it together.
And a lot of it was...
Go ahead.
A lot of it was at our old job, we would take walks. Every day we would take a walk. And so we started talking and envisioning about the future. And then when the opportunity presented itself, you know, we already had a bit of the blueprint established of what, you know, if our dreams could come true, this is what it would look like, or if we were able to do the first business over again. And so being able to have had some of those conversations and know what the overall vision was just because we've had those conversations and they've grown together has made it easier with the goal setting.
And I have to say, I have to give a plug for walking meetings. I was actually just reading an article very recently about the benefits of walking meetings. Number one, they make them shorter, right? So you don't waste time because you're walking around.
Right.
Number two, they say that it's really good for creativity because your brain and you're moving your body, and there's just some really great things that can come out of having a walking meeting. So I'll drop a link to that in the show notes. The show notes will be at herpowerhustle.com/partners. So I guess what I would like to wrap up with are sort of any questions that you think I haven't answered from a partnership perspective that you would really want to make sure that our listeners take away from this conversation.
Yeah, just don't go into business with your friends because you've been friends, or your sister because you've been sisters, because they're the nearest person to you. When it comes to what your professional endeavors are and what your dreams are and making that vision happen, you really have to pick the right person for it. Keeping in mind that, you know, you may know a lot about that person, but there's a lot of risk to this. I remember when we first started doing this, I looked at Jessica and I said, I see why Beyonce fired her daddy. Sometimes you just want to go back to the fun, and we spend a lot of time talking about business. And so we made conscientious efforts to make sure that we're still having fun because we almost got lost in the business aspect of it. So just that part, you know, remember your relationship, what it was before. Don't go into the business with just anybody, and, you know, communicate.
And be okay with being vulnerable with each other, because there's going to be times where you learn not only about each other, but you're going to learn a lot about yourself in this business, and being able to take that in and process it and come out and have mature conversations is very, very important.
I do have one question for you, and that is that a lot of us are creatives. right? As you mentioned, Jessica, that Rhonda's creative. Do you think it's very important that at least one of you is very business-minded, or do you think that you just make a determination how you're going to make sure that the administrative parts of the business are taken care of?
Yeah, I think Rhonda needs me.
Always does.
I think you guys need each other.
Thank you, Michelle. A bright
I
idea
was
will
going to
only
come to your rescue, Rhonda.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But a bright idea will only get you so far, and
right.
But and that's what I mean by our complementary styles, where I can have a bright idea, and in fact, I've had 3 just in the last 10 minutes. But
oh, great! Have you?
But I could crank them out. But if there's no one who's sitting there and going, okay, so how are we going to make this happen? What is this going to look like? And who are the people we need to put around this? Who is this and that? Which initially I found that process draining when I would come up with something or have an idea, and Jessica would come in with all of these, okay, so how do we make it happen? Who does this? And what's the goal and this and that? And I'm like, whoa, you're killing my vibe there. But we need that aspect of it to be able to get there in a short amount of time. Because, I may have a great idea and figure it out eventually, but Jessica's going to make sure that we have to-do lists, that we have meetings about it, that we contact the right people, all that non-fun stuff.
And one of the things, because it is very important to have that creativity, I would say to, if you don't have that business mind person, hire a coach that will keep you accountable and keep you on track. I think that helps in that realm, because we've run into several entrepreneurs that have so many different things that's going on. They're doing so many different things where they're good at everything, but not an expert in one thing. And sometimes that makes it difficult for people. Some people can do that, don't get me wrong. Some people can juggle all those things. But there's people out there that need to have someone that's making sure that things are being done, you're on the right track, you're still working towards that goal. And whether you have that in a partner, or if you find that in a coach, or you have that in your inner circle, wherever it is, it's very necessary.
That makes sense. I mean, it's very clear, very clear. So, Sister Power Hustlers, if you're thinking about going into business with your girl, just make sure that then when you have complementary skills, and you also have a clear vision about where you're going and what you're building together. So, where can people find you who would like to hire you for your services, find out more about what you do? Where should they go?
Our website is www.skylightleadership.com, and we have a lot of information on our Facebook page, which is Skylight Leadership, or they can feel free to drop us an email at info@skylightleadership.com.
Awesome. And, of course, we'll have links in the show notes to all of that, as well as their Twitter account. You be a tweeting here and there.
Yes,
and that's at herpowerhustle.com/partners. So, ladies, I have to ask you, I have 3 final questions for you. So I will say first, Rhonda, what is your guilty pleasure?
Guilty pleasure. Wow. I like mindless television because I could do it while I'm doing other things. I tried watching Game of Thrones the other night while doing things, and that doesn't work out. So I really like TV that I don't have to think about.
I feel you. How about you, Jessica?
Chocolate. I love me some chocolate.
Milk or dark, or it doesn't matter?
Milk.
Okay. So we get the hard-hitting questions here. So, Power Hustle is synonymous with superpower. That's on your chest moment. Jessica, what is your Power Hustle?
What is my Power Hustle?
What's your superpower, girl? What's that thing where you're like, I know I rock that thing consistently?
Let me think. I am lost for words. And that's probably a question I probably should have been prepared for.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do.
What?
Jessica, what is Rhonda's superpower?
Her superpower?
Yeah, what do you think that she is, like, amazingly talented at? What do you, like, really admire about her? What is the one thing that she just does and she nails it every time?
Being able to just get up and just being spontaneous. That's her thing.
Okay, cool. See, I knew we'd get there. And I should have thought about that before. And so, Rhonda, what is Jessica's superpower? Because I know you know what her superpower is.
Oh, Jessica is incredibly observant. She picks up themes and patterns, and she can tell you about something that changed in somebody from one point to the next. And did you notice at what? I'm like, no, I didn't notice any of that. I'm typically oblivious. So she is incredibly observant. I think that's where her therapist background comes in handy.
So you, Rhonda, what do you have a mantra or a quote or a favorite song that you like, that you listen to or look at or read before you go into a big meeting or something like that?
Wow. I have so many because so much comes through my head at random times. I like lifestyle.
Okay. That's all inaudible words. Yeah.
Right. But you know what? There's a lot that you have to give up to live this here lifestyle, and people don't understand that as an entrepreneur, you are living like people won't for a few years, so you can live like people can't later on. And so that's the thing that really, really gets me and infused me. And not that I'm particularly fond of all the words of that song, but that kind of speaks to the whole overall.
Right. You should rap it for us, right? Do we want to hear it? Do we want to hear a little bit of it?
We're going to put it in the show notes, believe it or not. We're going to find a clean version of Lifestyle. But no, I think that makes absolute sense, and in a sense, you just gave us a twofer, because I do love that quote that says entrepreneurs will live like other people won't, so that they can live later like other people can't. And it's so true. I love that quote. So, yeah, absolutely got a twofer. So thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time and your candor and transparency with regard to your relationship and taking over the world, bringing the light to the sky.
Yes, love it.
Thank you both so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Rhonda and Jessica. I think they were really honest, and I think what struck me the most is that they are complementary, and they realize that they're not flawless, right? As much as we would all love to be flawless, we're not. And they recognize that they each individually have flaws, and they see the flaws in one another and respect them. Well, for the most part. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I look forward to chatting with you again on the next episode. Of course, you can find all of our show notes at herpowerhustle.com/partners. And if you are a woman entrepreneur, side hustler, early stage founder, please come join us on our Facebook group, the Sister Power Hustlers. You can join us there on Facebook. If you search Sister Power Hustlers, you'll come right into the community. And of course, there'll be a link in the show notes if you'd like to join us as well. I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode of Her Power Hustle. And as I like to say, her hustle is real. Take care, y'all.
Thanks for tuning in to the Her Power Hustle podcast, produced and hosted by Michelle Talbot, with voiceover talent by Mr. Matt Young, music created by Warren McRae for 24/7 Music Group.